Today I'll be explaining how database frameworks work under the hood. I've created my own demo database framework that we can step through. Here we're going to look at the typical way people use database frameworks. We're connecting to our database and using that connection to generate queries. We've created a typical query using link functions. Finally, we're using a for each loop to iterate over the results of our query. Let's see how this works. The way you'd think our query class works is we've defined functions for select, where, etc. that talk to our database. That actually isn't how database frameworks work. If we look at the generated C#, we can see that the compiler's taken our link queries and replaced them with function calls. These function calls take expression objects. Here are the expressions for our two where queries, and here's the expression for our select. Basically, what happens is our database framework takes our expression objects, parses them, and converts them into SQL. To unpack this, let's have a look at how our database framework is implemented. Our query provider creates queries for us, so it implements Microsoft's iQuery Provider interface. This means that it has two functions: create, which creates a query from an expression, and execute, which parses an expression, converts it into its SQL, and executes that against our database. Let's run our code and step through it. When we create our first where clause, our initially empty query asks the query provider to create a new query with an expression that contains the where body. We create our second where clause. The query we just made asks the query provider to create a new query with the expression that contains our two where bodies. This loop continues when we create our select clause. Our latest query asks the query provider to create a new query with an expression that contains the two where bodies and the select body. We finally have a query that holds an expression with our two wheres and our select. When we loop over this query, the for each loop asks the query for an IEnumerator. The query asks the query provider to execute the query's expression and give back an IEnumerable of the results. The query provider executes our expression by first checking whether we ask for a list of answers or a single answer. If we write where or select queries, we'll be asking for a list. But if we write a query with .first or .average, for instance, we'd be asking for a single answer. Query provider hands the work of parsing the expression over to a parser. At this point, the parser will convert our expression to SQL and give us back our answers. These answers then get fed back to our query, which hands them off to our for each loop. In summary, we have three layers of abstraction. The query provider creates queries, and each query holds its expression. The reason why we have so many layers of abstraction is that a lot of work goes into converting C# to efficient SQL queries. The query provider can hold caches of queries that are seen before to make generating new SQL faster. The query can simplify its expression tree to make executing the expression more efficient.